Chris Brown?
Here.
Rob Caruth?
Present.
Amy Grantham?
Here.
Nancy Hopper? Katie Jess?
Here.
John Proudy?
Here.
Melissa Smits?
Present. Could you all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda is the approval of previous minutes for January 16, 2023. Pleasure of the board.
Move to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Actually, I meant to email you this morning. It says the Board of Education in Warren County met for a special meeting. That was the
Oh, thank you.
regular
Regular
meeting.
meeting.
I will correct that.
But it was special.
Of course, it was
It was
special.
special.
It's always here.
They're
It was a
always
special.
So, do we need a new motion?
With the change.
Could we have a motion with that change?
As amended. I'll move with the change,
Or just amend the motion?
just amended. Either way.
Someone has to do so.
I move that we amend the minutes to reflect that it was a regular meeting, not a special meeting.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Chris Brown?
Aye.
Rob Caruth?
Aye.
Amy Grantham?
Aye.
Katie Jess?
Aye.
John Proudy?
Aye.
Melissa Smits?
Aye. Next on the agenda, we have the agenda. What is the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve is presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Chris Brown?
Aye.
Rob Caruth?
Aye.
Amy Grantham?
Aye.
Katie Jess?
Aye.
John Proudy?
Aye.
Melissa Smits?
Aye. Next on the agenda is a special presentation, the 2022-2023 final budget. Ms. Tonino.
Okay, I was just going to highlight some changes. I had quite a few because of things that have happened and things I've learned since the first budget. So I was able to add a column for the actual audited numbers for 21-22 because those were ready, so that is on here. The revenues for general fund are down slightly because I adjusted the federal revenues to match up what we're expecting to spend for the ESSER funds. Some other things that have changed in the purchase services, we signed a contract with ABLE for GED tuition for 22.5. The MCC vocational costs look like they're going to be up about an extra 30,000, so I added that in. Professional services for special ed, I added 45,100. For grant 4414, I added 75,000 based on the ESSER budget that I got from Rena's department. And repairs and maintenance, I got a list from maintenance, and it looks like I needed to add another 50 to cover that list. I also adjusted travel amounts because I think I was using COVID numbers when I did the first budget, and people are actually going somewhere now. Looking at the supplies number, it is, by the way, we're on page 1, Bev. Oh, you got it up there, okay. The supplies is up, mostly because when I prepared the initial budget, there's a category in other that is for indirect costs, and I moved those into the supplies area. So you'll see that the other category in preliminary went down while the supplies went up. We moved the HVAC expenses that were budgeted in preliminary to next budget year because while we're working on it, they're not going to get spent this budget year. The net change to the general fund for the budget is a deficit of $17,097, so almost a break even. Looking at allocations, if you want to look at page 2, there is an allocation. We didn't change the cap reserve or the insurance. The preschool is up slightly based on the newest figure for per pupil that I got from CDE. That can fluctuate and change again. We also have other allocations. We put $85,000 of general fund money in the daycare because they were running low, but we'll discuss that when we get to that fund. There's been some things to change that and make it better. We also get money from CDE and the state equalization for CPP slots, and that was not allocated to daycare or the CPP fund previously, so that's a $207,000 allocation there. If you want to break down the detail of the general fund revenue, we can look at page 3. You have to wait for Bev. Was that us?
Our custodian was coming in the door, that's why it
Oh.
was, I was.
Could you put that on page 3?
Yes.
And I'll just, one of the biggest changes is that now with interest rates going up, I had a big change to the interest revenue. It went from $8,500 to $175,000. That's what we're expecting. And then just a slight change in the state equalization, not a huge difference in the revenue there. Okay, looking at page 5, it's mill levy. We still have $304,000 in the budget that is remaining to be spent, and it should be plenty to get us through the next 5 months. It allows us to carry forward $516,000 in the fund to next budget year. And with those figures, we're using $127,025 of the beginning fund balance of $643,874. We don't want to keep building that balance up because it really is meant to be spent, and that's why it's in there. So we want to carry a little bit, but not just keep building and building that fund. Page 6 is the daycare. This is where you're seeing the allocation of those CPP slots is $106,000. That really improved the budget of this fund. We transferred $85,000 from general fund, and there was a grant that was riding in Fund 22 that actually should have been put into daycare because it had to do with this teen parenting. So we're moving those funds into this fund. That's the $62,000. So looking at this, I'm predicting a surplus of $98,531 at the end of this budget year, which should indicate we shouldn't have to fund with general fund money next time. Okay, moving on, let's see. Page 7, cap reserve. I mentioned in the last meeting that with our audited surplus of $473,000, I wanted to take some money and allocate to each of the school buildings so they could have a one-time amount to spend on things to improve the look and function of their schools. So I allocated an additional $260,000 to each of, broke it up to the buildings by student count. Previously, I didn't have anything on that line, building capital outlay allocation. It's that first number, 341,719. That's the 260, and what we always allocate something to the schools for cap outlay, but I hadn't broken it out previously on that line. I think that's a little more clear to do it that way. With these changes, we're looking at a deficit in the budget of $484,000, which is fine because we still have a balance coming forward of $261,000. This is another one that we don't want to just keep building the balance and not use the funds for the school district. Moving to page 8. This is the insurance fund. There was a very little change here. I just upped the interest amount because I'm expecting it to be more. But other than that, there wasn't a lot of change to this fund. Food service, Colorado Preschool's next. That's page 9. Where's my preschool? Okay, looking at the preschool, here's that $207,839, which was allocated from general fund for the CPP slots. Then they have to turn around and allocate back to daycare their share. So it's they get to keep part of it, but part goes back to daycare. And then we also pay $94,000 to Evans for the CPP slots that we go over there. And page 10 is just a summary of all the general fund funds, something that we're thinking about in the future, but we're not ready to do it. When I met with Mark from CDE, he said we could collapse a lot of these into general fund and not have so many funds going. I'm not quite ready to do that, but just something that we could do down the road. And food services, page 11. Predicting a deficit of $31,228. CDE has kind of dinged us in the past that we have too much money in our food services. We aren't really prepared to really use that in the next 5 months, but in the next budget year, we're really going to work on trying to update things, and we don't want them to say, hey, give us the money back. So since we have it, we're going to try to get that spent. At the end of the audit year, the fund balance for food was $997,000. So that's why they're like, hey, so we're going to try to take care of that. Page 12, Fund 22 is where all of the state and federal grants run through. It should be a dollar in, dollar out type situation. I did a lot of work with Dee Dee and Rena to make sure I had the correct grants in there. So the amounts have changed slightly from the preliminary budget. The biggest thing that adds to that change in fund balance is we have interest income predicted to be $16,000. Otherwise, it just goes in and goes out. Fund 23 is on page 13. Not a lot of change. Once again, this is a pretty much in and out. It's where we keep track of all the fundraisers for the different clubs at the high school. Penny and I are going to spend a little time this year taking a look at these because some of these clubs have had money for years and it's not getting spent. So we want to work with them and just let them know what you have and say, we need to get this spent out. Page 14, Bond Redemption Fund. I adjusted the revenue to match the new mill levy that we passed. I added interest income quite a bit there because we do have some dollars that accumulate there. And then for the principal and interest, I matched that to the schedule of bond payments that we get from the people that keep track of all of our bonds. So, let's see. Building fund. If you look at the 21-22 audited fund balance, it's $9 million. That's where that money for the Legion Field bond is sitting. When you book the bond, it has to go into this, and it comes as an income. So that's why that is a $9.1 million fund balance. For our budget, we're hoping to get about $1.7 million spent on Legion before the end of this year, and continue get going on that because people are anxious to see something happening. Where we got that property from the Saddle Club, it's going to just make this a really great project, and it's going to make it not so scrunchy. So, did you want to?
No,
Oh, okay.
sorry. It reminded me of something. Don't let me forget.
So I'm budgeting a deficit for this fund by spending $1.5 million towards those renovations at Legion Fields. And then, private purpose fund, this is just where the private scholarships are housed that we manage for people. Nothing has changed in this one, it's just the same. And that is all I had on this. Are there any questions?
Looks beautiful.
Thank you. I'm getting excited because I understand it a lot more this year. So another year?
So you know enough to be dangerous now.
It's getting there, getting there.
This is probably a little bit too ahead, but I know with our 4-day week challenges, one of them was like the snacks and stuff like that. So on the food and food service funds, have you thought any about that? That'd probably be a
No, but that's really
2024
something that
question.
could start to use up some of that money.
Yeah.
I find Ashley to be a delight to work with. She knows what she's doing, and so I can work with her on that, and I've already told her, you have capital money that needs to get spent, but she kind of came into that job with the don't spend any money attitude, and so she's been real cautious, so.
We also know that every elementary next year is going to qualify for the fresh fruit and vegetable
Mhm.
program, so that's also a possibility for snacks in the afternoon as well.
It's gonna be really important.
Yeah.
So one question on the page 3, on the multi-year contract.
Yes.
So why is that from 150 to 600,000?
Oh, I might, let's see. Page 3?
Is that page 3?
Oh, it's page 2. No?
Page 1 of the
Oh, there it
On the
is.
sidelines.
3 out of 18, but 1, it's the first page.
Okay.
Well, in the preliminary budget, it was 608, and it's still 608.
And what's that representing?
That is Randy and Rob's contracts
Okay,
that we have to pay out, or since we contracted to pay it, it is reserved.
right, I get that. I thought we were just reserving 1 year.
I think we have to do the duration of the contract, is what I understood.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah, and Randy's in Aruba, so we can all thank
Randy's
him.
still in there, and that's multi-year.
Yeah.
Randy, so you have,
He's
you
got-
you have to appropriate
Hey,
it.
I forgot about it.
Yeah, Randy
He's
has
got
2 more
one more
years.
year after this one, right? Wasn't he?
One more year.
Aruba.
Yes, okay, so,
He's the 712.
I think so.
Fair enough.
Any other questions for Tony? Okay, moving along to action items. Action item A, appropriating resolution for 2022-2023. What is the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Chris Brown? Aye. Ron Cruz?
Aye.
Amy Grantham?
Aye.
Katie Jess?
Aye.
John Proudy?
Aye.
Melissa Smith?
Aye. Action item B, resolution to expend the beginning fund balance for 2022-2023. What is the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Oh, yeah, move. We have a motion.
Yep.
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Chris Brown? Aye. Ron Cruz?
Aye.
Amy Grantham?
Aye.
Katie Jess?
Aye.
John Proudy?
Aye.
Melissa Smith?
Aye. In advanced planning, the next board meeting is February 6, 2023. The regular meeting is 7, but we will probably have the work session, no, we're not going to.
Set up.
A work session, no dinner. So we'll just be here at 7
Nice.
on that day. If there is no other business before the board, we are adjourned at 5:47 PM. That is the quickest budget meeting we've ever had.
I got a race to the high school. I'm doing chat with the chief tonight.
He saw that.